My daddy's hurt. Please wake him up, the little one pleaded in the rain. Daddy, Daddy, wake up. Lily's small hands pushed against the cold shoulder, rain soaking through her thin nightgown. The mud beneath her father's body had turned dark red, mixing with the storm water that poured down the farmhouse gutters. Please, Daddy. You're scaring me. The scream that tore from her throat carried across the yard. Grace dropped the dinner plate she'd been washing. The crash of ceramic on kitchen tile meant nothing now. She ran barefoot through the back door, her heart already knowing what her mind refused to accept. Lily, baby, get away from there. Mommy, Daddy won't wake up. Lily's face was streaked with tears and rain. I tried shaking him, but he won't talk to me. Grace fell to her knees beside Marcus's body. 2 dark holes in his chest told the story she didn't want to read. Her fingers found his neck, searching for a pulse that wasn't there. His skin was already cold. Is he sleeping, Mommy? Lily, come here to me right now. But Daddy needs help. Lily. Grace's voice cracked like a whip. She pulled her daughter against her chest, turning the small body away from the sight. Don't look at him anymore, baby. Don't look. Why won't he wake up? Grace's hands shook as she fumbled for her phone. The rain kept falling, washing pink streams away from Marcus's still form. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of him promising he'd always come home safe. 911, what's your emergency? My husband's been shot. He's dead. We're at the old Henderson farm on Valley Road. Ma'am, are you sure he's deceased? I'm sure. The words tasted like ash. Send someone now. Lily pressed her face into Grace's shoulder. Mommy, you're shaking. I know, baby. I know. Grace held her daughter tighter, rain plastering her hair to her skull. Marcus's eyes stared up at the storm clouds, seeing nothing. Everything's going to be okay. Mommy's got you. But Grace knew nothing would ever be okay again. Someone had taken everything from them. Someone was going to pay. Sheriff Calhoun's patrol car pulled into the gravel driveway 2 hours after the ambulance left. Grace sat on her porch steps, still wearing Marcus's blood on her hands. Deputy Walsh stayed by the car while Calhoun walked over, his boots crunching on wet gravel. Grace, I'm really sorry about Marcus. Who did this to him? That's what we're trying to figure out. Calhoun removed his hat, ran thick fingers through gray hair. We need to ask some hard questions. Ask them. Was Marcus gambling? Maybe borrowing money from folks he shouldn't have. Grace stood up fast. What did you just say? Sometimes good men get mixed up with bad people. Debts, you know how it is. Marcus didn't gamble. He didn't even drink beer. What about drugs? Pills, maybe. Times are hard, people do things. Get off my property. Grace's voice went deadly quiet. Right now. Grace, I'm trying to help you here. No, you're not. She turned toward the house. You're lying to me. Where you going? To find the truth myself. Grace slammed the front door behind her. In Marcus's study, she pulled books off shelves, dumped drawers onto the floor. Behind his desk, taped to the back of a picture frame, she found the manila envelope. Inside were copies of land deeds, court filings, bank records, all bearing the same name, Hartwell Family Trust. She remembered Marcus working late these past months. What's keeping you up, honey? She'd asked. Just some irregularities at the county office, he'd said. Probably nothing. But it wasn't anything. Page after page showed the pattern. Small farmers losing their land to unpaid taxes. The Hartwell Trust is buying everything for pennies on the dollar. Families forced out. Lives destroyed. At the bottom of the stack was a handwritten note in Marcus's careful script. Governor Hartwell's signature on the forged documents. He knows. They all know. Grace sank into Marcus's chair. Outside, she could hear Calhoun's car still idling in the driveway. He wasn't investigating Marcus's murder. He was covering it up. They killed her husband because he'd found the truth. And now they thought she'd just grieve quietly and disappear. They were wrong. Grace found Sheriff Calhoun at his office the next morning. She slammed Marcus's manila envelope on his desk. Papers were scattered across the worn wood surface. This is why they killed him. Calhoun barely glanced at the documents. Grace, you need to go home and rest. Look at it. Look at what Marcus found. I don't need to look at anything. The Hartwell Trust has been stealing land for 20 years. Marcus had proof. Calhoun leaned back in his chair. His face changed. The fake sympathy disappeared like smoke. Your husband should have minded his own business. So you knew. I know lots of things. You know who killed him. I know smart women grieve quiet and move on with their lives. Calhoun stood up, his hand resting on his gun belt. Stupid women ask too many questions. Grace felt ice in her veins. You're threatening me. I'm giving you advice. How much do they pay you? Enough. Marcus trusted you. He thought you were his friend. Marcus was naive. Just like you're being right now. Calhoun walked around his desk, stopping inches from Grace's face. Pack up. Take that little girl of yours. Find somewhere else to live. This is my home. Not anymore, it isn't. Grace backed toward the door. People will find out the truth. No, they won't. Because you're going to keep your mouth shut. And if I don't? Calhoun smiled without warmth. Then you'll end up like Marcus. Grace ran to her car, hands shaking as she started the engine. At the cemetery, she knelt beside Marcus's fresh grave. Rain started falling again, just like the night she found his body. The headstone was simple black granite with his name and dates. 34 years old. Too young to die for telling the truth. She pressed her palm against the wet stone. They think I'll just disappear. They think I'll stay quiet. Her voice was barely a whisper. But they don't know me at all. The rain fell harder, but Grace didn't move. She had work to do. Grace woke to Marcus's voice calling her name. She sat up in their empty bed, heart pounding. The house was silent. But she'd heard him clear as daylight. Grace, baby, wake up. In the kitchen, she saw his shadow move past the window. Tall and broad-shouldered, the way he used to stand when he was thinking. She ran outside barefoot, but found only empty yard and morning mist. Mrs. Carver was waiting on her porch next door, rocking chair creaking on old boards. You're seeing him, aren't you? I don't know what you mean. Sit down, child. We need to talk. Grace climbed the porch steps. Mrs. Carver's eyes were sharp despite her 80 years. How long have you lived here? All my life. Same as my mother before me. Then you know about the others. What others? The men who died asking the wrong questions. Mrs. Carver stopped rocking. My husband Frank was one of them. 1973. Found him at the bottom of Miller's Well with a broken neck. That was an accident. No accident. Frank had been fighting the county about our water rights. Same rights the Hartwells wanted for themselves. Grace felt cold despite the morning sun. How many others? 7 that I know of. Maybe more. Mrs. Carver reached into her apron, pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping. Read it. The headline read, Local farmer dies in tragic fall. The farmer's name was William Chen. The date was 1951. He was organizing the other landowners against old Governor Hartwell's daddy. 3 generations. 3 generations of blood on this land. Mrs. Carver folded the clipping carefully. The dead don't rest easy when justice never comes. That night, Grace heard Marcus's voice again. This time she didn't run to find him. She sat in their bed and listened. They won't stop, he whispered. They'll kill you too if you're not careful. I know, she whispered back. But you can't let them win. I won't. The voice faded, but Grace felt something settle in her chest. Not peace. Purpose. She wasn't just fighting for Marcus anymore. She was fighting for Frank Carver and William Chen and all the others who died trying to tell the truth. The Hartwells thought they owned this land. But the dead had other plans. Mrs. Carver knocked on Grace's door at midnight. Behind her stood 3 other women Grace had seen at church but never really talked to. Sarah Chen, Helen Morrison, and Ruth Valdez. All widows. All carrying the same hollow look in their eyes. We need to talk, Mrs. Carver said. They sat around Grace's kitchen table like they were planning a church supper instead of revenge. Sarah spoke first. My grandfather was William Chen, the one who died in 51. My brother was the Morrison boy who died in 87, Helen said. Supposed car accident after he questioned a land survey. Ruth's voice was barely a whisper. My husband, Roberto. Last year. They said it was a heart attack. Mrs. Carver spread Marcus's documents across the table. We've been waiting for someone with proof. Someone brave enough to do what needs doing. What exactly are you asking me to do? 2 things, Mrs. Carver said. First, get this evidence to the newspapers. Let everyone see what the Hartwells really are. And second, make sure Governor Hartwell pays personally. Grace stared at each woman in turn. You're talking about murder. We're talking about justice. Same thing, Sarah added. After what they did to our families. Hartwell's got a campaign stop at the county fair next week, Helen said. Big crowd. Lots of confusion. The old grain elevator behind the fairgrounds, Ruth added. Hasn't been inspected in years. One loose beam, wrong place at the wrong time. Mrs. Carver leaned forward. You don't have to do this alone, child. We'll all help. Grace thought about Marcus's voice in the dark. About Frank Carver, William Chen and Roberto Valdez. About Sheriff Calhoun's threats and all the men who thought women would just stay quiet and disappear. What do you need me to do? The women smiled. Not happy smiles. Satisfied ones. 2 days later, every newspaper in the state ran Marcus's story. Governor Hartwell's poll numbers collapsed overnight. Federal investigators announced a full inquiry into the land grab scheme. But that wasn't enough. At the county fair, Grace watched Hartwell work the crowd near the grain elevator. She gave Mrs. Carver a slight nod. The old woman moved toward the support beam with a crowbar hidden in her coat. Sometimes justice came from courtrooms and badges. Sometimes it came from widows in the dark. Today, it would come from both. The grain elevator collapsed at 2:15 on a Tuesday afternoon. Governor Hartwell died instantly when 3 tons of rotted timber crushed him during his campaign speech. The county coroner ruled it a tragic accident. Structural failure due to decades of neglect. Sheriff Calhoun called Grace that evening. His voice sounded different. Smaller. Federal agents want to talk about Marcus's research. I'm sure they do. I told them I'd cooperate fully with their investigation. Smart choice. Grace, I want you to know. I don't care what you want me to know. She hung up the phone and felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not relief. Just emptiness where her anger used to live. 3 weeks later, Grace and Lily walked through the cemetery gates. The rain had finally stopped after days of storms. Marcus's grave looked different in the sunlight. Peaceful somehow. Lily carried a small bundle of wildflowers she'd picked from their yard. Are we going to see Daddy? Yes, baby. Is he still sleeping? Grace knelt beside her daughter. Daddy's not sleeping. He's gone to a place where bad people can't hurt him anymore. Can we visit him there? Someday. But not for a very long time. Lily placed her flowers on the headstone. I miss him. I know. I miss him too. Are you still sad, Mommy? Grace thought about the question. Was she sad? Or was she something else entirely? I'm different now. But that's okay. Mrs. Carver appeared at the cemetery entrance with Sarah, Helen, and Ruth. They walked slowly toward Marcus's grave, their faces solemn but not sorrowful. They'd all paid their respects to the dead in their own way. How are you holding up, child? Mrs. Carver asked. I'm fine. The federal investigation is moving fast. Sheriff Calhoun's singing like a bird. Good. Mrs. Carver studied Grace's face. You don't sound happy about it. I am. But not the way I thought I'd be. Sarah placed her hand on Grace's shoulder. Justice feels different when you have to take it yourself. Grace nodded. She used to believe in courtrooms and laws and good men wearing badges. Now she knew better. Sometimes the only justice was the kind women made in the dark. Lily ran between the headstones, laughing as she chased a butterfly. The sound was beautiful and normal and everything Grace had fought to protect. Come on, baby, Grace called. Help me plant these. She'd brought marigolds. Marcus always said they were tough flowers. Hard to kill. They'd bloom here long after Grace was gone, marking the spot where a good man died for telling the truth. And where his wife learned that some battles could only be won by getting blood on your hands. The cycle was broken. But the cost was everything she'd once believed about right and wrong. Some prices were worth paying.